We envision a world where everyone has the means to be healthy and can thrive. At Johnson & Johnson, we're committed to fulfill our role in making the world a better, healthier place for generations to come.
As Johnson & Johnson, we can do good in the world. I think we're very fortunate to have someone like Alex who really understands exactly what the organization believes in.
He's constantly looking for ways where we can meet unmet medical need on a big scale. That's his personal mission, and it's also the mission of this great corporation.
He truly is an inspirational leader that believes in diversity and inclusion. He believes in equal opportunity. He believes in equal advancement for all individuals, and he demonstrates that every day.
We are uniquely positioned to help transform global healthcare and to shine a light on the most important issues we're facing.
At Johnson & Johnson, we have been working on an HIV vaccine. We are thrilled to announce that we are going into large-scale efficacy testing of the vaccine in humans.
With the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, we mobilized a massive team within the shortest possible time to get to a vaccine. We now can prevent the next epidemic from happening.
Alex comes from a mindset of being a servant leader. I mean, he really feels like he's there to serve others. That notion of being there for communities in good times, being there for communities when they need help, that's part of our DNA.
Hurricane Maria had a huge impact on Puerto Rico. So we've donated goods, Johnson & Johnson materials, hygiene kits, funds, and money to support the communities, as well as ensuring that our employees had access to fresh water and food, which was not readily available in the community right after the hurricane.
You know, to fix some of these big problems, whether it's the environment, whether it's the refugee crisis, we got to work together. And I'm sure when we do it, there's nothing that we can't take on and beat.
In J&J's support of the Syrian refugee crisis, working with our partner at Save the Children, we took the approach that we have families, we have children who are really hurting, and it was an obvious place for J&J to take a stand, not just in the moment, but that's an effort that was going to be ongoing.
I was really proud of Johnson & Johnson's commitment to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I went to Alex and I said, hey, look, we have this opportunity. And just like that, he said, we should be founding donors. We should go big on this.
Alex cast a very large shadow in the corporation, having people bring their authentic selves to work. It's really important so that our employees can express their innovation, their potential, and they know that the boss at the top has their back.
Alex believes that we should have major impact in the world. It's all about years of life saved and years of quality of life generated for people around the world.
He always brings that inspiration. He brings something that is special, that brings us all together as a company, but then motivates us really at an individual level to be our best.
What strikes me most is how one group of people can touch the lives of so many others. And it's a bit of a ripple effect that grows. And before you know it, we're having an impact all the way on the other side of the world.
Please welcome Grandma Ethel to present Alex Gorsky with the Robert F. Kennedy Ripple of Hope Award.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kennedy, for this wonderful honor. I just can't thank you enough. Standing up here tonight, I must admit, though, when Donato and Carrie first called me, that I had no idea that I would have two of the most influential people in my life, Bars and Paul, make the trip from Michigan. Teachers that influenced me from so long ago and continue to do so today. And what an honor also to be following you, Hamdi, with Chobani, just an incredible organization, and you're such an inspiration. I didn't realize I shared a couple of things with Hamdi when, we've had a chance to, I think we're actually in the United Nations with President Obama not too long ago when we were talking about the refugee crisis. And we started telling some stories on the side, and I told him the story about when I was a young lieutenant serving in the U.S. Army in northern Greece. And it was a tough job protecting democracy in northern Greece in 1982, but I was there doing it. And occasionally on a Friday or Saturday night would be, walking back after making sure that none of our soldiers had drank too much. And when your stomach wasn't feeling quite right, the best thing that you found was they had these huge trays of yogurt. And it was Greek yogurt with honey on it. And I can remember more than one occasion consuming large and vast amounts of Greek yogurt, trying to compensate for other things that I had done earlier in the evening. Damn, I wish I would have had that idea that he got later on. But look, the other side of it is I'm also the grandson of immigrants. And, my grandparents came from Croatia and Russia. And I can remember growing up in the 60s and going to their households, and every one of the households on this little Croatian block of Kansas City, Kansas, there was a picture of John F. Kennedy. And, frankly, they worked in sausage factories near the stockyards in Kansas City at that time, and they could never imagine that their grandson would be at an event like this with the Kennedys. And all I can say is my grandmother Millie's probably up there in heaven right now saying, "Yoy, Alex, you better say a prayer before you get up there and talk and get it right." So I'll do my very best. And look, I could not be prouder to accept this award tonight, really on behalf of Johnson & Johnson and all the great employees that we have. There's about 135,000 of us around the world, and they're really dedicated, and they get up every day to help people live longer, healthier, and happier lives. And if you just give me one indulgence, is that there's many of them here. If you could just give them a round of applause, because that's what this is really about. Without them, without the great work they do, there's no way I could do what I do. And also for my wife, Pat, my bride of over 30 years, who met this young lieutenant as a nurse, and she took a big bet, and I just cannot thank you enough. I'll be spending the rest of my life trying to do so, but thank you very much for everything that you've done. And I'm also blessed to have other family members here tonight, my brother and some others, friends from my hometown. And as they say, it takes a village to raise all of us, and that certainly was the case with me. Now, you also got a chance, as I mentioned earlier, to meet Paul and Bars. And whenever you meet somebody from Michigan, they usually do one of these. They go, "Where are you from?" "Detroit's right here." And the town that I came from, much like Hamdi, yours in Upper New York, is up here. Pretty rural. We had about 3,000 people. It was the home of Gerber baby food, was the claim to fame. And it was the mid-'70s. And I'm not sure there were too many other 9th and 10th graders that had history, political science, American literature, or English literature, and English teachers taking you through the connections of the New Deal, of progressivism, and later about civil rights, and in parallel, teaching you about Faulkner, Hemingway, Pound, Jack Kerouac, and the parallels between what was going on in society and what was going on in American literature. And in a public school, to have that kind of an opportunity, I'm incredibly fortunate. And it's due to teachers like them, frankly, that so many of us can do what we do today. So would you please just give them a round of applause for what they've done. And finally, to all of you in this room, it's really through your generosity, your time and effort, you get asked out to a lot of dinners, but the fact that you're here and your activism, that's what really keeps the legacy of Bobby Kennedy alive and allows this great organization to do what it does. Now, among the many other quotes that you've heard from Bobby Kennedy tonight, one of my favorite is that the purpose of life is to contribute in some way to making things better. And at Johnson & Johnson, I can tell you we passionately believe in this. And in fact, our purpose is built around this belief. We believe that we can make things in the world better today by fundamentally changing the trajectory of health for humanity. Now, that's a big and audacious and ambitious goal. But we also know that our products and our services make life better for almost 1 billion people around the world every day. But we also think and know we can do more. We know that when you get research and innovation and experience and you help governments and academia and yes, even competitors, you reach better, you reach more informed decisions on behalf of patients and consumers every day. But we can go further. You know, we try our best to set ethical, moral, giving, and caring standards across the broadest spectrum of human need and health and wellness. But when you think about it, because we live in a time in which the world needs more care now than perhaps any time since World War II, we believe we can give more. And because we believe we can, we must. Now, one of the earliest and broadest statements of corporate social responsibility, even before that word was cool, in almost any other industry, that spirit was captured on a piece of paper written almost 3/4 of a century ago by the son of one of our founders, Robert Wood Johnson. And what I'm talking about is the Johnson & Johnson Credo. Now, this simple document, it's only 342 words long, covers less than a page, doesn't even exist in PowerPoint. But if you had to rebuild J&J from the ground up, you could really start with this document alone. Now, translated, credo means I believe. But in many ways, our credo, well, it's about action. In fact, the word must, it occurs 21 times out of those 342 words, and almost every time it's followed by a verb. Now, Bars, I bet you didn't think I still knew what a verb was. Now, what that tells us is that we must help our employees be strong for their families, for their communities, that we must invest in infrastructure, that we must be competent and ethical employees, that we must protect our environment. It tells us that we must innovate, keep costs low on behalf of our customers, honor those who make those things possible. And it tells us that our very first responsibility is to the patients, the people, the mothers, the fathers, the children who use the products that we provide. Now, 75 years ago, next year, Robert Wood Johnson captured the essence of J&J on one page, and that long ago, explicitly connected the health of our business with the health of the environment, labors, communities, and really sustainability before people even spoke in those terms. And today, we think that connection is as relevant, in fact, more relevant than ever before, because we believe that health is a fundamental human right. Now, in order to live up to our credo and achieve our purpose of changing the trajectory of health for humanity, it's essential that we use every power, technology, human, political, scientific, social, financial power, to drive greater availability, greater access, and dare I say, help to usher in an era of the democratization of healthcare. So whether it's from West Virginia, you're in East Africa, or Shanghai, where I was just last week, people from every walk of life should have access to healthcare. Your zip code should not be a greater indicator of your health and longevity than your genetic code. Now, we understand that we have a unique role to play in the world, simultaneously filled with the optimism of all this incredible science and technology that's coming to fruition today, but also with the demands of disease, disaster, and disenfranchisement. And I firmly believe, just as Hamdi was saying, that our country, our citizens, our corporations, our universities, political and social action groups, that we can and we must come together to try to find a better way to solve the problems of today. Now, let me give you just one example of what I'm talking about. In 1980, a new word was entering the society's lexicon. And it really, at that time, spelled almost certain death. And that word was AIDS. Research was started, new theories were tested, collaborative partnerships were forming between companies like ours, governments, agencies, academias, institutions all around the world worked hard, all trying to find a solution. And over the past 25 years, J&J alone has developed more than 6 HIV medicines. Now, over that time, therapies improved, and HIV/AIDS became no longer an imminent death sentence, but it's really managed more like a chronic illness over a lifetime. Think about that. In a lifetime, it's gone from a death sentence to a chronic disease. But we know that the battle isn't over. And according to the World Health Organization, in 2017, there's going to be almost 38 million people around the world affected by HIV. Unfortunately, only about 21 million are getting treatment, and around 1 million people died of HIV-related illnesses globally in the past year. And as you might expect, about half these deaths were in sub-Saharan Africa. And what you may not know is that about half of these people are women and girls who have HIV. In fact, young women between the ages of 10 and 24 are twice as likely to contract HIV as males the same age. Now, the Holy Grail, the real promise for putting an end to HIV transmission would be a vaccine. And in a recent study conducted in 100% of healthy volunteers exposed to a vaccine we're developing, people developed antibodies to HIV, which suggests that this could actually shield them from the disease. So in partnership with philanthropies, governments, and industry partners, that vaccine is in the next rigorous round of testing as we speak. And the physician who's been a driving part of that is sitting among us today, Dr. Paul Stoffels. So think of that, 37 years, that's a blink of an eye. And we all know that science is unpredictable, but these results, they really make us optimistic more than ever to get a vaccine out in our lifetime and protect people from HIV forever. Because we feel that, look, as long as women, children, marginalized communities, innocent victims continue to be infected, we've got to make sure the transmission and treatment of HIV it's not only a health for humanity issue, it is a human rights issue. And because we can, we must. And that's why we work hard with global partners to find solutions, education, access to care, advocacy, and yes, also in other areas like Ebola, Zika, cancer, heart disease, mental health. The list, unfortunately, goes on. Now, Bobby Kennedy was truly a visionary that inspired me as a young man in writing that paper. And he could see the role of business being harnessed for good. He knew that global companies can and should get involved in social justice causes, civil rights, human rights, economic empowerment, and other crucial issues. And we must start with a rock-solid appreciation for human dignity, respect for the individual, and above all, compassion and care for all. So tonight, we celebrate the life of Robert Kennedy. I am honored to be with you to raise my voice. I'm incredibly and deeply privileged to share just a tiny thin slice of the difference we strive to make at Johnson & Johnson every day, and how we aspire every day to make things better through innovation, and social good, and what we consider our must-dos. Now, Robert Kennedy told us that the future is the work of our own hands, and I would humbly add, with our own hearts. Thank you again for this award and for caring so much about RFK and human rights. Thank you, everyone.